Denmark will vote on the 3rd of December whether they will change their opt-out to an opt-in on EU justice and home affairs. But the question is if the Danes know what they are answering yes or no to. Since the implement of the more strict treaty in 1992, Denmark has had an opt-out of EU justice and home affairs. This means Denmark can take part in intergovernmental corporations. These are decisions made between the EU countries. But Denmark cannot take part in supranational levels, which are laws enforced by the EU. In 2009, the EU Justice and Home Affairs area was changed from an intergovernmental to a supranational level with the Lisbon Treaty. Denmark could therefore no longer participate in corporations about, for example, sexual abuse of children, human trafficking, cybercrime, and bankruptcy. An opt-in on specific acts of the EU Justice and Home Affairs will make it possible for Denmark to cooperate with the police force Europol in the future, as Europol is turning supranational in 2016. The reform of Europol is therefore the main reason for the Danish referendum. A yes to the referendum means that the laws of 22 acts of justice and home affairs are handed over to EU. If Denmark votes no, it must stay out of corporations on the EU justice area.
The theme for the referendum is a rather complex matter, so one can hardly blame one or two Danes if they not fully understand all the consequences of the referendum.
There's a lot to understand and take into account before voting. I'm in Aarhus asking the Danes whether they know what the referendum is about and if they would vote yes or no.
We have to implement some EU regulation laws.
No, not the December. Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's regarding the EU. And I think it's something like about the restrictions Denmark have.
Yeah, I've heard something about it, but I don't really know.
Yeah, we need to decide whether or not to remove this special exception that we politically have decided on having in the EU.
I think I maybe heard a little bit about it on the news one day, but I wasn't really listening to it.
Well, it's about like the policy about immigrants and refugees.
Enhedslisten in Aarhus is aware of the fact that some Danes might have misunderstood the content of what they are voting for.
I heard a lot of people thinking they are voting about whether or not we should be part of Europol or whether or not we should have a European solution to the problem with so many refugees. But that's not what we are voting about. We are voting about who gets to decide this.
According to Hans Skov, member of City Council for Venstre in Aarhus, the Danes in general knows what they have to vote for, but he admits that it is a difficult subject.
From my point of view, we all have, as Danes and living in a democracy, we have a obligation to be aware of what we are voting about. And that means you can take a fair decision. And from my point of view, I hope the most will vote yes, but I also take a no for a no.
Henning Bang Fuglsang Madsen Sørensen wrote a book about the referendum. He thinks that for a lot of Danes, opting in or opting out will not be the focus when they make their choice.
So there is a real risk that the referendum is not on European Union, Europol and all that stuff. That the basic theme for this referendum will be, do I trust the politicians?
The People's Movement Against EU is campaigning all over Denmark in order to make the Danish people vote no.
Vi kommer fra Folkebevægelsen mod EU. Værsgo. I think that if we hand over the power over justice policy to the European Union, we will limit our democracy. Every time we hand over an area to the EU, it will not be possible for the Danish Parliament to take it back again unless we leave the European Union.
But for Venstre, who is one of the 5 yes parties in the Danish Parliament, it is essential for Denmark to cooperate with the EU about criminal laws.
Standing outside the Europol cooperation is a big issue, seen from my point of view, because you can't do any efficient or taking care of criminals traveling around Europe, and we have to be a part of the Europol cooperation.
Anne Helund thinks that a cooperation with Europol can be possible with parallel agreements. So Denmark does not have to opt in order to join the European police force.
Like, even though some of the yes parties are saying, oh no, it will be a paradise in Denmark for trafficking and child pornography and so on, we will still have laws that make it illegal, and the other EU countries, they don't have any interests in not collaborating with us and our police about it. So I think they are trying to scare us into thinking that criminals can just walk freely across our borders doing crimes without any consequence if we don't opt in. And that's not how it's going to be.
Back on the street in Aarhus, the red and the green ballot papers are dropping into the box.
If the referendum was right now, what would you vote?
Yes, I'm a European, so there's no doubt for me in that part of it.
I have not decided. But I am pro-EU, so maybe yes.
I think I had to vote. It's about Denmark getting their own, that they decide to choose their own laws against immigrants and so on. So I would probably have to vote no.
The European Union is basically a good thing, and if you can implement same rules across all countries, to a certain degree of course, it would be quite good.
I think I'll do what I did last time. I see a good thing with the EU.
I'm definitely gonna vote no to that myself. It's we need a little less EU and a little more Denmark at the moment, I think. Well, this is definitely a no.
The result of the referendum will be announced the 3rd of December. So the Danes still have time to decide on Denmark's future in EU's justice area.